how to talk like a leader. There are voices that fill a room, and then there are voices that command it. Some people speak, and others lead. The difference isn't power. It isn't volume. It's presence. It's clarity. It's courage. The way you speak can ignite change, move hearts, and build empires. But to talk like a leader, you must first think like one. You must speak from a place deeper than ego. You must speak with the weight of vision, not just the sound of words. In the next 30 minutes, I will not just teach you how to talk like a leader, I will help you become the voice that leads. Let's begin. The voice of a leader begins within before any leader steps on a stage, stands at a podium, or speaks into a microphone. Something far more important must happen. They must claim their voice within. Because leadership is not granted through title, position, or even skill. It begins with identity, how you see yourself, how deeply you believe in your own voice, and how willing you are to own the space you were born to fill. If you speak, but doubt your worth, people will hear the hesitation in your words. If you try to sound powerful, but carry fear beneath your sentences, it will bleed through every syllable. The truth is simple, but it's not easy. The voice of a leader cannot rise from a place of insecurity. It must rise from conviction. Your words, your tone, your impact, all of it begins inside. And so many people try to skip this part. They mimic the surface of leadership. They learn hand gestures, vocal variety, posture. But underneath, they're still waiting for permission, still hoping someone will validate their voice before they dare to use it. But no one's coming to crown you. No one's going to tap you on the shoulder and say, "Now you're a leader." You become one the moment you decide your voice matters enough to be heard. The moment you stop whispering your truth and start standing inside it. To talk like a leader, you must break free from the stories that have kept you silent, the childhood moments that taught you to shrink, the failures that made you question your capability, the criticism that made you doubt your value. Every one of those experiences left a mark. But a leader doesn't erase the past, they rise above it. They decide that their voice isn't just strong, it's necessary. And not because it's perfect, not because it's flawless, but because it's real. You don't lead by pretending to have all the answers. You lead by speaking from the strength of what you do know and the honesty of what you don't. People don't follow perfection. They follow presence. They follow authenticity. They follow someone who is bold enough to speak even when their voice shakes. Someone who says, "I may not have every answer, but I have a vision. I may not speak the loudest, but I will speak the truth." That is what people follow. That is what people feel. Think of every leader who's ever moved you, not because of what they had, but because of what they said. It wasn't fancy language or polished rhetoric that stirred you. It was something deeper, a quiet certainty, a fire in the voice, a sense that they believed what they were saying so deeply. You started believing it too. That's the internal foundation you must build. Not just how to say something, but why you're saying it. Who you are when you say it. What you stand for, that gives your voice its weight. Because without that, every speech is just noise. Every word is empty. But when your voice rises from your values, When it's rooted in something solid, it becomes unshakable. So ask yourself, what do you stand for? What truth are you no longer willing to silence? What message is burning inside you, waiting to be spoken? That's where leadership starts, not on a stage, not in a meeting room, but in that quiet, powerful decision. I will speak, and I will speak with meaning. Not because I want to be heard, but because I have something worth saying. That's the shift. That's the root. You don't talk like a leader to impress the world. You talk like a leader because the world needs your voice. You talk like a leader because silence is no longer an option, because something inside you knows it's time. The power of silence and presence in a world obsessed with noise, where everyone is shouting to be heard. The leader is the one who doesn't need to. There is a quiet kind of power that doesn't come from speaking louder. It comes from speaking less, but meaning more. It's the power of presence. It's the authority of silence. And it's one of the most overlooked, misunderstood tools in the art of leadership communication. Because we're taught to believe that leadership is about domination, about taking up space, about filling every silence with answers, solutions, commands. But the truth is, some of the most powerful moments a leader can create are the ones where they say absolutely nothing. Silence makes people listen. It draws them in. It creates tension, gravity, weight, and most importantly, it gives your words contrast. Without silence, your voice has no shape. Without pauses, your message has no rhythm. If you speak constantly, if you rush to fill every second with sound, your voice becomes predictable, mechanical, forgettable. But when you pause intentionally, confidently, it changes everything. A pause can add emphasis. It can create space for thought. It can show strength without aggression. And most of all, it can show control, because a person who is not afraid of silence is a person in control of themselves. Presence is what makes that silence feel powerful instead of awkward. And presence is not about being the biggest personality in the room. It's not about charisma in the flashy sense. Presence is about being fully there. It's about standing, sitting, walking into a room with your attention undivided, your energy not scattered, your mind not racing to impress, not scrambling to prove anything. A leader with presence doesn't need to demand attention, it's given to them. Because people can feel when someone is grounded, when someone is calm, when someone is fully aware of their environment. That feeling makes people trust you before you even speak. We've all experienced it. Someone walks into the room, and without saying a word, they change the energy. They seem composed, collected. They look you in the eye without looking through you. They listen before they speak. They respond instead of reacting. That's presence. And it's not something you're born with, it's something you build. You build it by learning how to manage your inner state, by not letting nerves or ego hijack the moment, by practicing stillness, not just in your body, but in your mind. Because when your presence is powerful, your words don't have to work as hard. You don't need to speak endlessly to be understood. You don't need to shout to be heard. You don't need to dominate to lead. Your voice becomes more effective because people trust the stillness behind it. And here's the deeper truth. People don't just listen to what you say, they feel who you are when you say it. If you speak from a rushed, anxious, uncertain place, that energy will seep into your words. But if you speak from stillness, from intention, from awareness, every word lands heavier. Every sentence carries more weight. That's why silence isn't empty. It's not weakness. It's not hesitation. It's power in its most distilled form. It says, I don't need to convince you. I don't need to perform for you. I know who I am. I know what I stand for. And I am not in a rush to prove it. That kind of presence changes the dynamic of every room you walk into. It shifts the way people perceive you, not just as someone who talks, but someone who leads. To lead with your voice, you must learn to lead with your stillness. To master communication, you must first master your presence. And presence is not about what you say, it's about what you don't have to say to be felt. It's the message behind the message, the strength that lives in the silence between your words, the signal that says, without speaking, I'm here, I see you, I own this moment. Clarity over complexity. A true leader doesn't speak to confuse, they speak to reveal. They don't use complexity as a shield to hide behind. They use clarity as a weapon to cut through noise. In a world where people are drowning in information, flooded by opinions, and overwhelmed by the constant hum of meaningless talk, clarity has become a rare and powerful form of leadership. And it's not just about speaking simply, it's about speaking in a way that makes people feel seen. It's about giving them something they can hold on to, something they can believe in. Because people don't follow what they don't understand. They follow what moves them, what makes sense to them, what reaches them on a human level. But too often, people think sounding intelligent means sounding complicated. They wrap their messages in big words and abstract theories, hoping it makes them seem credible. But that's not leadership. That's insecurity in disguise, because it takes far more confidence, far more courage to speak simply, to take something complex and make it clear. That is the mark of someone who truly understands what they're talking about. If you can't explain it to a room full of people from different backgrounds, if you can't say it in a sentence that sticks, then maybe you don't know it as well as you think. Or maybe, just maybe, you're more concerned with being impressive than being impactful. Think about the leaders who truly inspired you, the ones whose words stayed with you for days, even years. Were they the ones who used the most technical language? Were they the ones who rattled off the most facts and figures? Or were they the ones who made something complicated feel simple? The ones who spoke in stories, in metaphors, in words that felt like they were speaking directly to you? That's clarity. That's emotional intelligence. That's leadership communication. It's not about saying more, it's about saying less, but meaning more. Clarity requires discipline. It means stripping away everything that doesn't serve your message. It means editing yourself in real time. Not to be less of who you are, but to sharpen the impact of what you say. Every word becomes intentional. Every sentence has a purpose. And this isn't about sounding robotic or rehearsed. It's about understanding that words carry weight, and wasting them dilutes your power. A leader understands this. A leader honors their audience by being clear not because people can't handle complexity, but because clarity is respect. It shows you value their time, their attention, their trust. And let's be honest, clarity is rare because clarity is hard. It forces you to think deeply about what you really mean. It forces you to slow down and ask, what am I truly trying to say? That process of refining your thoughts, stripping away ego, and getting to the essence of your message is not easy, but it's necessary. Because the world is already full of confusion, people don't need more noise. They need leaders who speak with direction, intention, and purpose. When you speak with clarity, people don't just understand you, they remember you. They quote you. They share your message. Not because it was the smartest thing they've ever heard, but because it was true. It resonated. It landed. And that's what makes communication unforgettable. It's not the complexity that stays with people, it's the clarity that cuts through the chaos. So whether you're speaking to a boardroom or a team of 5, whether you're presenting a vision or just answering a question, ask yourself this: am I making this clearer, or am I making it about me? Because leadership is not about sounding important, it's about being understood. And when people understand you, they begin to trust you. And when they trust you, they begin to follow you, not because you dazzled them, but because you reached them. Because in a world of empty noise, your clarity felt like truth. Speak to inspire, not to impress. When a leader speaks, their words don't just fill the air, they fill people. They don't speak to be admired, they speak to be felt. Because leadership is not a performance, it's a calling. And the moment your voice becomes more about applause than impact, you've already lost the power of it. You're not here to impress the world, you're here to ignite it. You're not speaking to show off what you know, you're speaking to awaken what others have forgotten about themselves. That is the heartbeat of true leadership communication. It is not about you, it is about them. And until you understand that, you will always speak from ego, not from purpose. We live in a culture where people measure value by reaction, by likes, by claps, by how loud the room gets. But the most impactful voices aren't always the ones that create noise. Sometimes they're the ones that create stillness, that make people pause, that pull something out of them they didn't know was still alive. And that kind of speaking doesn't come from trying to sound important. It comes from being deeply connected to what you're saying. Because when you speak from a place of truth, it carries a different frequency. People don't just hear it, they feel it. And that feeling becomes memory. That feeling becomes trust. That feeling becomes leadership. Speaking to inspire means putting your audience before your ego. It means trading in the need to look smart for the courage to be real. It means telling the story that's hard to tell because someone out there needs it. It means being willing to go first in vulnerability, first in honesty, first in heart. Because someone has to break the surface. Someone has to speak the truth others are too afraid to say. That's what leaders do. They don't wait for permission. They don't wait for the room to be safe. They make it safe through their voice, their courage, their example. It's easy to impress people when you stay on the surface. You throw out big ideas, impressive words, flawless delivery. But inspiration doesn't live on the surface. It lives in the depth. It lives in the messy, honest, human parts of you, the parts that have struggled, the parts that have failed, the parts that have risen again. That's where real connection is born. Because people don't need a superhero. They need someone who reminds them that they can rise, too. That's the leader's job, to awaken the leader in others, not by being untouchable, but by being authentic. And authenticity doesn't mean oversharing. It means alignment. It means that your message is in harmony with your values. Your voice matches your mission. You don't say things just because they sound good. You say them because they are good, because they matter, because you've lived them, earned them, believe them. That kind of voice has a different gravity, a different pull. People lean in because they can feel that you're not just speaking to them, you're speaking for them. If your goal is to inspire, you'll speak differently. You'll ask different questions. You'll pause more often. You'll listen more carefully. You'll realize that the most powerful thing you can do with your voice isn't to make people think you're amazing. It's to make people feel that they are, that they have more in them than they thought, that they matter, that their voice counts. And that's where your leadership becomes bigger than you. Because inspiration doesn't end with applause. It begins when someone walks away from your words and does something they never believed they could do. That's impact. That's legacy. That's leadership, not built on how high you can stand, but on how deeply you can reach. Commanding tone, not dominating tone. There is a kind of voice that silences the noise in a room, not by overpowering, not by intimidating, but by grounding. It doesn't demand attention. It draws it. That voice is not loud, but it's clear, not aggressive, but unshakable. It doesn't come from ego, it comes from certainty. This is the voice of a leader who commands, not one who dominates. And the difference between the two is the difference between influence and fear, between respect and control, between leadership and insecurity pretending to be power. Anyone can raise their voice. Anyone can speak over others, interrupt, intimidate, or try to force their way into dominance. But that is not leadership. That is noise dressed as strength. That is a person trying to prove something, rather than embody something. True leaders do not speak from a place of superiority. They speak from a place of grounded authority, a tone that says, I know who I am. I know what I stand for. I don't need to overpower you to make my voice heard. And people can feel the difference immediately. A dominating tone triggers defensiveness. It raises walls. It shuts down listening. Because at its core, domination comes from insecurity and inner need to control others in order to feel in control of oneself. But a commanding tone, it opens space. It doesn't push, it pulls. It invites trust. It invites alignment. It's firm, but never forceful, strong, but never sharp. It speaks with intentional weight, not emotional violence. The most powerful voices are not the ones that interrupt others, they are the ones that center others. A leader who knows how to command with calmness will always be more effective than the one who tries to dominate with volume. Because when people feel safe, they listen. When they feel seen, they engage. And when they feel respected, they follow. The voice of a leader should never feel like a weapon. It should feel like a steady hand in uncertain terrain. It should steady the room, not shake it. To speak with command means being emotionally intelligent with your tone. It means knowing when to lower your voice instead of raising it. It means understanding that control of your voice is control of your energy. You don't allow your emotions to hijack the moment. You don't let frustration leak into your words. You choose response over reaction. Even when the room is tense, especially when it is and that discipline, that calm, that grounded presence, it's what gives your voice real authority. Because leadership isn't about controlling others, it's about leading them. And people don't want to be dominated. They want to be led with strength, clarity, and respect. They want to know you can stand firm without bulldozing everything in your path. They want to hear conviction in your voice, not control. That's what makes a voice truly commanding, the ability to speak with fire without burning the room down. This doesn't mean you're soft. It doesn't mean you let people walk over you. Quite the opposite. It means you own your power so fully that you don't need to flaunt it. You trust your voice so deeply that you don't need to shout. That trust becomes your tone. That inner solidity becomes your outer strength. And it creates an unspoken rule in the room. This is someone worth listening to. So, as you step into your leadership voice, ask yourself, am I trying to control or am I trying to lead? Am I speaking from fear or from certainty? Because domination might get compliance, but command builds commitment. Domination gets silence, but command creates conversation. Domination forces behavior, but command inspires belief. And belief is what every true leader is after. Not obedience, not submission, but belief in the vision, in the mission, and in the voice that carries both forward. Listening is leading, but in their ability to receive, to observe, to listen deeply. Listening is not a passive act. In leadership, it is one of the most powerful, intentional tools you will ever use. We've been conditioned to think leadership is about always having the answer, always having the next step, always knowing what to say. But sometimes the most powerful thing a leader can do is not speak. Sometimes what people need most is not direction, it's understanding. Sometimes they don't want solutions, they want to know they've been heard. And in that moment, your silence becomes more powerful than any speech. Your attention becomes the act of leadership. Because people can feel when they're being listened to, and they can feel when they're not. They know the difference between a nod and true presence, between someone waiting to talk and someone truly hearing them. When a leader listens with real intent, it builds a bridge of trust. It signals to others, you matter, your voice matters. This isn't just about me, it's about us. That kind of leadership creates loyalty. It creates unity. It creates momentum. Listening also gives you access to wisdom that speaking never will. When you truly listen to your team, your audience, your peers, you start to notice things, patterns, emotions, unspoken fears, hidden needs. You begin to understand not just what people are saying, but what they're really saying beneath the surface. That insight makes you a better communicator, a better strategist, a better human, because now Your words are not just reactive, they're relevant. They speak into the heart of what people actually need. And this kind of listening doesn't come by accident. It's a discipline. It requires you to slow down, to get out of your head and into the room, to let go of your need to impress or respond quickly. It means resisting the urge to interrupt. It means being present enough to hear what's not being said, to feel the weight behind someone's words, because sometimes what people say with hesitation tells you more than what they say with confidence. Sometimes what they don't say at all reveals the most, and a leader who is paying attention will catch it. But make no mistake, listening is not weakness. It is not surrender. It is not silence out of fear. It is the quiet confidence of a leader who doesn't need to dominate every moment. A leader who understands that relationships build movements, that trust fuels influence, that empathy drives connection, and connection drives action. People will not move for someone who doesn't hear them. They will not follow a voice that only echoes itself. But when they feel seen, when they feel understood, when they feel like their perspective matters, that's when they rise. So don't just wait for your turn to speak. Don't just nod to appear polite. Listen with your eyes. Listen with your body. Listen with your soul. Make people feel, in your silence, what they've longed to feel in the noise of the world. You matter here. That's what listening does. It grounds people. It lifts them. And in doing so, it elevates your leadership far beyond the words you speak. Because at the end of the day, the leaders who make the deepest impact are not the ones who talk the most. They're the ones who listen the best. They're the ones who let others find their voice before ever raising their own. Speaking in high-stakes moments, leadership isn't truly tested. When things are easy, it's revealed when the pressure rises, when emotions run high, when uncertainty takes over. When fear is thick in the air, that's when people look for a voice to steady them. And in those high-stakes moments, your words don't just carry information, they carry weight. The way you speak during those moments will either build trust or break it. You won't always have time to prepare. You won't always have perfect answers. But what you will always have is a choice: to rise or to retreat, to lead with courage or collapse into noise. Speaking in high-stakes moments requires more than knowledge, it requires presence. Because in times of tension, people don't just hear your words, they feel your energy. If you speak with panic, they will absorb that panic. If you speak with anger, they will mirror that anger. But if you speak with grounded calm, even when your heart is racing inside, people will begin to find their footing in your steadiness. That's what true leaders do. They don't pretend they're unaffected, but they choose to be composed. They choose to be the calm within the storm, not because it's easy, but because others need it. High-stakes communication is about timing, tone, and truth. Timing, because knowing when to speak is just as vital as what you say. Sometimes people don't need immediate answers, they need reassurance. They need to know that even if things are uncertain, the leader is still standing. Tone, because you may be delivering hard news, but how you say it matters just as much as the content. You can speak truth without harshness, You can deliver facts without cruelty. You can show strength without shutting people down. And truth, because trust is built when you don't sugarcoat, when you don't spin stories to protect your image, when you tell people what they need to hear, not what's easiest to say. But here's the challenge. High-stakes moments often trigger our survival instincts. Our fight-or-flight response kicks in. We speak faster. We get defensive. We try to control outcomes through force, and in doing so, we risk losing what matters most: connection. We forget that leadership is not about being right, it's about being real. It's about standing in the fire with others, not above them. So in these moments, pause, breathe, center yourself before you say anything. Ask, what do these people need from me right now? Do they need solutions, reassurance, honesty, hope? Let that guide your voice. And sometimes you will be the only calm voice in the room. Everyone else will be spiraling, shouting, shutting down. That's when your voice becomes a beacon. Not because it's perfect, but because it's anchored. People don't expect you to know everything. They don't expect you to fix everything. But they do expect you to show up, to be present, to care, to lead not with arrogance, but with courage. One of the most powerful things a leader can say in a high-stakes moment is, I don't have all the answers, but I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere. That sentence alone can calm fear, build trust, and open the door to solutions. Because leadership doesn't mean pretending you're invincible. It means being visible. It means using your voice not to dominate the moment, but to hold it, to create space for people to think, feel, and move forward together. In these moments, remember, your voice is not just a tool. It is a responsibility. People are watching, listening, remembering. Long after the moment has passed, they'll remember how you made them feel. They'll remember if your voice added to the chaos or if it became a source of clarity in the confusion. And that memory becomes your legacy, not just as a speaker, but as a leader. The daily practice of leadership speaking. You don't become a powerful speaker by accident. You don't wake up one day and suddenly command a room. The voice of a leader isn't born in a single moment. It's built in the quiet, ordinary, unseen hours. It's shaped through discipline, sharpened through repetition, and strengthened through the daily choice to show up with intention. Because leadership speaking isn't just something you do when the lights are on or the cameras are rolling. It's a practice. It's a lifestyle. It's a commitment to showing up in your full voice, not just when it's convenient, but especially when it's not. Most people wait for big stages or big moments to think about how they speak. But the truth is, the way you speak in the small moments is what prepares you for the big ones. Every conversation is a rehearsal. Every meeting, every phone call, every interaction with a teammate or a stranger is a chance to build your voice. The tone you use, the clarity you bring, the presence you offer. These aren't one-time decisions, they are habits. And the people who speak like leaders are the ones who've made those habits a daily standard. This practice begins with self-awareness. You have to train yourself to listen to how you sound, how you come across, how you land with others, not to judge or criticize, but to refine. Ask yourself, am I speaking with intention Or am I just reacting? Am I communicating what I truly mean? Or am I hiding behind vague words and uncertain energy? Awareness creates choice. And choice is where transformation begins. Because once you hear your voice with clarity, you can shape it with power. The next step is intentional reflection. After conversations, take a moment to reflect. What worked? What didn't? What could I have said more clearly? Where did I rush? Where did I hesitate? Where did I truly connect? This isn't about perfection, it's about progress. Just like an athlete reviews game tape, a leader reviews moments. You treat every day like practice. You don't waste the ordinary. You mine it for wisdom. But reflection without discipline leads nowhere. To build your leadership voice, you must commit to practices that strengthen it. Read every day, not just to consume, but to expand your vocabulary and deepen your thinking. Write every day, not just to express, but to clarify your inner voice. Speak every day, not just to talk, but to connect. Practice articulating ideas. Practice pausing. Practice listening. Practice silence. Because the more you do in private, the more natural it becomes in public. And don't wait until you feel confident to speak like a leader. Speak like a leader until you become confident. Confidence isn't the starting point, it's the result. It's the byproduct of doing the work, day after day, even when no one is watching. Especially when no one is watching. That's what separates those who rise from those who remain hidden. The willingness to practice when the world offers no applause. And here's what's most important. Leadership speaking isn't just about how you speak to others. It's about how you speak to yourself. Your inner dialogue is the training ground for your outer communication. If you speak to yourself with doubt, with fear, with shame, it will color every word you speak out loud. But when you train your inner voice to be clear, focused, honest, and powerful, everything you say to others becomes more grounded and more authentic. Because your outer voice can never rise higher than your inner belief. So don't underestimate the quiet work. Don't dismiss the small moments. The strength of your leadership voice is not found in the spotlight, it's forged in the shadows. It's built every time you choose clarity over comfort, presence over passivity, courage over convenience. One sentence at a time, one moment at a time, every single day. Leadership begins with voice, but not just the voice that comes from your mouth. The voice that comes from your presence, your clarity, your integrity. The voice that doesn't just speak to impress, but to inspire. That doesn't dominate, but commands. That doesn't seek attention, but earns respect through calm, through courage, through consistency. If you've listened this far, then something inside you already knows you were not made to stay silent. You were not made to shrink back, to blend in, or to speak from fear. You were made to lead, to rise, to be the steady voice in the chaos, the honest voice in the confusion, the human voice in a world too often divided by noise and ego. But leadership is not found in a single speech. It is found in the choices you make daily, in the moments when it would be easier to stay quiet, but you choose to speak, in the conversations where listening takes more strength than talking, in the times when pressure tempts you to panic, but you choose to breathe and stand tall anyway. Every moment is shaping the voice the world will one day remember. So speak with truth, not for approval. Speak with purpose, not performance. Speak not to prove you're a leader, but because you know you are one. You don't need permission. You don't need perfection. You need to show up with intention, with presence, and with courage. Because your voice is not just what you say. Your voice is how you make people feel. Your voice is the legacy you leave behind. Talk like a leader. Live like a leader. Lead because the world is waiting for your voice.